Next up, we're going to bring Oleg Ursu back up to the podium. For those of you who weren't around when I introduced him earlier, he is from the University of New Mexico working with Tudor Opera. He is a chemist by training who transitioned into cheminformatics around 2006. And I will turn the mic over to Oleg.
So I'll continue with my next talk on how I used molecular matching pairs to mine the promiscuous fragments in or substructure in PubChem. I'll start with what we think are the frequent hitters in PubChem, and these can be compounds which are either promiscuous or interfere with your assay. And by promiscuous, I mean compounds which can be aggregators, reactive, or have other properties which make them promiscuous, means bind to many different targets indiscriminately. And the assay interference compounds depends on the method you use to measure the outcome, and in our case, they can be fluorescent compounds or quenchers. You can usually detect these frequent hitters by using the expert knowledge, medchem knowledge especially, and this knowledge can be encoded by example, for instance, as smarts rows. Unfortunately, a lot of this knowledge is not available in public domains, and there are published filters in literature, but they're not so comprehensive, or they don't have all the knowledge which pharma industry has, for instance. So these are some examples of the frequent hitters. What we consider. So the first number is the number of assays tested, and the second number is the number of assays found active in PubChem. I'll just give a short introduction what molecular matching pairs are. Essentially are molecular transformations. You can have single cut or double cut or even triple cut or multiple cuts. We don't usually go more than 3 cuts at a time. You can use rules to fragment, to break bonds, or you can define a common core and break around that core. It depends on an implementation. We use a simple rule which only allows for breaking of the bonds which are not part of the functional groups and or rings, and we only consider the molecular matching pairs which have fragments less or equal to 8 atoms. There have been a lot of the papers published recently using matching molecular pairs, and the reason people started to use this is because they allow you to easily see transformations in a series of molecular structures, and you can map these transformations to molecular properties like biological activities or log P or cytochrome 350 metabolism or even activity cliffs, and there are papers you can search in and find. And I found so far 3 major classes of MMPs implementations. One is Leatherface from AstraZeneca. It requires you to define the rules to fragment. WISPair requires you to define the common core, around which you can cut. And the Hussein algorithm, which was published recently, which we implemented in-house, it just has this simple rule: don't break functional groups and don't break rings. I'll give a short introduction to the database I used to find the. Probably a lot of you already know about PubChem. PubChem is funded by NIH. Data is deposited by molecular library centers, which are MLPCN, also called. They also have data from other sources like NCI, Campbell, pharma, industry. I think Glaxo deposited some data sets in PubChem. We only focused on a small subset of PubChem MLSMR library and the assay deposited by MLI centers. And if you look at the distribution of the data, it's about almost 4,000 assays deposited by Molecular Libraries Initiative, and they have more than 90% of the data points. So, and we wanted a library which is consistently tested on a different set of targets, and this is the reason I chose the MLSMR, not the whole PubChem. So after downloading MLSMR library activity data from the FTP site, you can download everything, remove the salts, do some basic tautomer standardization. You want to do double cuts, single cuts, and triple cuts, and then map these molecular matching pairs, which are actually can be represented as smirks, to identify the ones which are active and the ones which are inactive. And then our definition, if we have a left or right member of the transformation active and the other one inactive, then we consider the MMP to be active. And if you have both members of the transformation either active or inactive, then there is no change in activity, we consider it to be inactive. You want to find the fragments which are associated with molecular matching, with molecular transformations, where you have a fragment which is responsible, which has a lot of activity, and you have the same parent molecule with a different fragment substitution, and it doesn't have activity, like in this case. You have a fragment which is in here. This fragment was found active. This molecule was found active in 75 assays out of 300, and you have the same parent molecule with a different fragments and tested in multiple, almost the same number of assays, but almost no activity. So the assumptions which I go by is this part has to be responsible for this activity if you substitute with other things and you don't have the activity. Simple basic rule, which can be true in most of the cases, probably not in all. Another thing which a lot of the people which published studies using MMPs ignore is the atom environments where these reactions, transformations take place. So this case, you have the same smirks. You change from chlorine to hydrogen, and it will be represented by the same smirks here, but it's changing the environment completely than this one. And the same case here, you don't, if you change here the carbonyl, you'll lose the Michael acceptor capacity of this atom, and in this case you don't. So environments are important. And the way the application works in our case, it keeps the environments of each transformation. And next, you want to rank the promiscuity of these fragments. And the way we do it, we look at all these four terms. We are interested in how many active substances you have this fragment, how many active MMPs, assays, and samples. A sample is the number of how many times the same MMP was tested in different assays. And then I multiply by this factor to normalize it to 100. So the maximum value of this score can be is 100. And this is a ranking from most promiscuous to the less promiscuous. But this is not all the fragments I found. But if you look at this, and if you have a medicinal chemistry background, you'll probably easily recognize Michael acceptors or protein cross-linkers or other thioureas, probably, I'm not sure. And these are known fragments which medicinal chemistry usually avoids. But some of the fragments, if you look at the complete list, is probably not known to some medicinal chemists, at least. And this is a simple statistics of the fragments. So you get about 600,000 unique single cut MMPs, 700,000 unique double, and unique means unique smirks in this case with the environment. And about 73,000 unique triple cuts. So there is no reason to go with 4 cuts because the number decreases dramatically. And the number of fragments in all of these types of cuts, it's about 54,000. If you look at the distributions of scores and fragments, you can see you can potentially look at this distribution to assign color coding to make the most promiscuous as red and the less promiscuous as blue, and then you can use this distribution to assign the colors, essentially. And the next thing I did, I was interested if these are promiscuous fragments, so what is the literature says about, is there anything published on these fragments? And you can see some of the papers are on cancer drugs. They try to study some. In my opinion, if you don't care about target selectivity, then these fragments can be okay. But if target selectivity is an issue, then you probably don't want to create lead compounds with these fragments in them. So, in conclusion, I want to say this is a tool which can be used to automatically mine, not just PubChem, any database. Or you have what you want to have in your library is a series of compounds which have different substituents and same core, so you can have enough MMPs to be able to detect the pattern series. I used JChem and Marvin API to do basically all cheminformatics related tasks like input, output, smarts, mircs, everything. And you generate a list of fragments with promiscuity scores, and you can assign different color codes to promiscuity scores, and then just use them to filter HTS hits. And if you have any questions?
Any questions?
I plan to make this as a public application, web app. And you probably want to go to biocomputing, biocomp, health, unm.edu, and check on the front page. There should be a link in the future.
All right, thanks, Oleg.